Las Vegas made a bet, not on a hand of blackjack, not on a roll of the dice, not on red or black, or any number on the wheel. Vegas made a bet on people, on who would fund the future of this city, on which tourists were worth keeping and which ones weren't. The biggest bet in the city's history, billions of dollars, decades of decisions, the entire identity of the Strip wagered on a theory. That theory was simple: the old tourists were dying off, and Vegas needed new ones. The executives looked at their customer base and saw a problem. The repeat gamblers, the slot players, the people who flew in from Ohio and Michigan and Texas 3 times a year to lose a few $100 at the tables. The loyal customers who'd been coming since the 70s. They were getting old, they were retiring on fixed incomes, they were dying. And the generation behind them, the millennials coming of age, they didn't gamble the same way, didn't want the same things, didn't dream about Vegas the way their parents did. So the casinos made a choice, a deliberate, strategic, boardroom-approved choice. Abandon the old tourist, chase a new one. Today, I'm showing you the strategic mistake that's killing Las Vegas. How the casinos deliberately pushed out the tourists who built this city, how they redesigned the entire Strip for a different customer, and how that bet, the biggest bet Vegas ever made, is failing. This isn't about changing tastes or bad luck or market forces beyond anyone's control. This is about executives who didn't understand their own business, making decisions that can't be undone, betting everything on tourists who can't sustain a casino economy. Vegas bet on the wrong tourists, and the house is about to lose. If you're new here, I expose what's really happening behind the neon. The strategic failures nobody wants to talk about. The decisions that traded 70 years of loyalty for a theory that isn't working. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Because understanding who Vegas abandoned and who they chased instead explains everything wrong with this city right now. Let me show you who Vegas decided wasn't worth keeping. The tourists they pushed out on purpose, the customers they priced out and designed out and told in 1,000 different ways that they weren't welcome anymore. And then I'll show you who they bet the entire future of this city on instead. For 70 years, Las Vegas had a core customer, not a whale. Not a high roller who flew in on a private jet and lost $1 million in a weekend. That's the fantasy. That's the movie version. The real customer, the one who actually funded this city, was simpler, more ordinary, more invisible. The repeat gambler from the Midwest. Picture them, a couple from Indianapolis, a group of girlfriends from Dallas, a retired postal worker from Sacramento who saved up all year for this trip. They weren't glamorous, they didn't photograph well, they weren't going to end up on anyone's Instagram feed. But they loved Vegas, genuinely, deeply loved it. They came 2, 3, 4 times a year, same time every year. Same property, same favorite dealer who remembered their name. They played slots for hours. Not high denomination machines, dollar slots, quarter slots, nickel slots. The sound of the reels. The occasional jackpot that paid for the whole trip. The free drinks that showed up every 20 minutes. They sat at blackjack tables with $10 minimums and played for 5 hours straight, tipping the dealer, chatting with strangers, feeling like they were part of something. They ate at the buffet, the real buffet, the one that cost $15.99 and had prime rib on Fridays. They saw the afternoon magic show. They bought souvenirs for the grandkids. And when they got home, they told everyone, coworkers, neighbors, church friends, "You have to go to Vegas. We go every year. It's the best." That tourist, that repeat, loyal, evangelical tourist. The person who lost $300 gambling and called it the best vacation of their life. Who came back year after year. Who brought friends and family and built traditions that lasted generations. That tourist was pushed out, on purpose. Priced out by table minimums that quintupled. Designed out by casinos that converted slot floors to nightclubs, told to leave by an industry that decided they weren't valuable enough to keep, but pushed out for who? The experienced tourist. The Instagram visitor, the content creator, the person who comes to Vegas not to gamble, but to be seen, to photograph, to post. They want the infinity pool shot at the Cosmopolitan, the bottle service table at Hakkasan, the perfectly plated omakase at a celebrity chef restaurant they'll photograph for 45 minutes before eating. They're young, they're photogenic, they look great in the marketing materials. And they spend money, real money. $300 for a daybed, $500 for a VIP table, $200 for a tasting menu. But gambling? Sitting at a slot machine for 4 hours? Playing blackjack until the sun comes up? That's not content. That doesn't get likes. That's not why they came. Vegas made a massive push for international visitors. Direct flights from Beijing and Tokyo and London and Sao Paulo, marketing campaigns translated into a dozen languages, visa programs, partnerships, billions spent to attract tourists from every corner of the globe. And it worked. The international visitors came. The Chinese tourists wanted luxury shopping, walked straight past the casino floor to the Hermes store, spent $10,000 on a handbag and $10 on slots. The European tourists wanted shows and restaurants, cultural experiences, the Cirque show, the celebrity chef dinner, the helicopter tour of the Grand Canyon. The South American tourists wanted nightlife, pool parties and nightclubs and daybed reservations. What none of them wanted, at least not in the same way, not in the same volumes, was to sit at a slot machine and lose money for hours. And then there's the convention tourist, the business traveler, captive for 3 days, expense account for meals, someone else paying for the room, perfect on paper. But here's the thing about convention tourists. They're not loyal to Vegas, they're loyal to the conference. If the conference moves to Orlando next year, they go to Orlando. And they don't gamble. They have meetings in the morning. They're networking until midnight. They're not losing money at the tables. They're building PowerPoints in their rooms. Look at how the Strip has been rebuilt. You can see the strategy in the architecture. Nightclubs taking over what used to be casino floor. The old slot banks ripped out and replaced with DJ booths and bottle service tables. Gaming space shrinking while club space expands. Pool complexes that cost more to build than the hotel towers above them. Acres of daybeds and cabanas designed for Instagram, not for guests who want to swim. Restaurant portfolios curated for food photography, every dish designed to be shared online before it's eaten. Prices that assume you're there for the experience, not the food. Retail that rivals Beverly Hills, Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Prada. Stores that target the shopping tourist, not the gambling tourist. This wasn't accident. This wasn't evolution. This was strategy. Fewer table games, higher minimums, slot floors compressed to make room for amenities that don't generate gaming revenue. The casual gambler priced out by design, the repeat visitor told through every architectural choice, every pricing decision, every redesigned floor plan that they weren't the customer anymore. The old Vegas, the Vegas of affordable buffets and $5 blackjack and free drinks for anyone with coins in a machine deliberately demolished. Replaced by a Vegas designed for tourists who don't gamble. Vegas looked at its loyal repeat gamblers, the people who'd been funding this city for 70 years, and decided they weren't the future. Too old, too cheap, too unglamorous. So they built a new Vegas for a new tourist, the nightclub tourist, the influencer tourist, the international tourist, the convention tourist, the experience economy tourist who'd rather pay for a DJ than a dealer. They bet everything on this pivot. Billions of dollars in construction, entire business models redesigned, the whole identity of the Strip reimagined for a customer who barely existed 10 years ago. And now the results are coming in. The new tourists are here. They're posting their content. They're filling the pools and the clubs and the restaurants. But they're not gambling. Not the way the old tourists did. Not in the volumes that sustain a casino economy. And the old tourists, the repeat gamblers Vegas abandoned, they're not coming back. They found somewhere else to lose their money, somewhere that still wants them. Vegas bet everything on the wrong tourists, and the house is starting to realize what it's lost. Here's what the executives missed. Here's what the consultants didn't put in the PowerPoint, what the focus groups didn't reveal, what the spreadsheets couldn't capture. The new tourists spend money. That part of the theory was correct, but they spend it wrong. They spend on amenities instead of gaming, on experiences instead of gambling, on Instagram moments instead of slot machines. And that difference, that gap between where the money goes is destroying everything. Let's start with the Instagram tourist, the influencer, the content creator. They come to Vegas for one reason: content. The infinity pool shot with the Strip in the background, The bottle service table with the sparklers, the perfectly lit photo at the celebrity chef restaurant, the story from the nightclub that makes their followers think they're living the dream. They're young, they're photogenic, they look amazing in the marketing materials. And yes, they spend money, real money. $300 for a daybed at the pool, $400 for bottle service at the club, $200 for a tasting menu they'll photograph for 20 minutes before taking 3 bites. They'll drop $1,000 in a weekend without blinking, more than the old repeat gambler ever spent on a single trip. So what's the problem? The problem is where that money goes. The daybed money goes to the pool operator, the bottle service goes to the nightclub, the restaurant tab goes to the celebrity chef's licensing deal. None of it hits the casino floor. The influencer tourist might walk through the casino to get to the pool, might glance at the slot machines on the way to the club, might Instagram the roulette wheel as aesthetic background, but sit down and gamble? Lose money at the tables for 4 hours? That's not content. That doesn't get likes. That's not why they came. Here's what the executives forgot. The pools and nightclubs and celebrity restaurants, those aren't profit centers. They're amenities, loss leaders. They exist to attract gamblers who'll lose money on the casino floor. The old model worked like this. Give them a cheap room, free drinks, affordable food. Get them to the property. Keep them on the property. Every hour they're here is another hour they might wander onto the casino floor and lose money. The gambling subsidized everything else. The losses at the tables paid for the comps in the buffets and the entertainment. When your tourist uses the amenities but skips the gambling, the model breaks. You've built a very expensive hotel that happens to have slot machines nobody plays. You've created a resort with world-class pools and restaurants and clubs, none of which generate enough margin to cover the cost of operating a casino. The influencer spends $1,000. The casino keeps maybe $200 after paying for the daybed, the bottle service, the food costs. The old repeat gambler spent $300 but lost it all at the slots. The casino kept $270. Do the math. The cheap tourist was more profitable than the premium one, but the influencer problem is just the beginning. The international tourists, the ones Vegas spent billions to attract, they have an even bigger gap between spending and gaming. They look great in the visitor statistics. 40 million visitors, record numbers. But visitor count isn't the metric that matters. Gaming revenue per visitor is. And that number has been quietly, steadily declining. The Chinese tourist flies 12 hours to Las Vegas. They walk into the Bellagio, past the Chihuly ceiling, past the slot machines, past the table games, straight to the forum shops. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Cartier. They're buying luxury goods that cost 30% less in America than they do in Shanghai. They're filling suitcases with handbags and watches and jewelry. They might spend $50,000 in a weekend. An incredible number. A number that makes the tourism board celebrate. But how much of that hits the casino floor? Almost nothing. A few spins at roulette for photos. Maybe $100 at baccarat because it's cultural. Then back to the shopping. The European tourist wants experiences. The Cirque du Soleil show, the helicopter tour over the Grand Canyon, the celebrity chef dinner that they can tell their friends about back home. They're not interested in slot machines. Slot gambling isn't part of their culture the way it is for Americans. They see it as tacky, unsophisticated, a waste of money that could be spent on real experiences. The South American tourist wants nightlife. Pool parties at daybreak, nightclubs until 4 a.m., the energy, the music, the scene. Gambling? That's what their parents did? That's boring. That's not why they flew to Vegas. Every category of international tourist spends money in Vegas, but they spend it on shopping, dining, entertainment, nightlife, everything except the thing that actually funds casino operations. The visitor counts look great. The gaming revenue per visitor keeps declining. Vegas is getting busier and poorer at the same time. And then there's the convention tourist, the business traveler. On paper, they're perfect. Captive audience for 3 days. Can't leave the conferences here. Company paying for the room, so price doesn't matter. Expense account for meals and entertainment. Guaranteed occupancy during the slow weekday periods when leisure tourists aren't coming. The convention business was supposed to smooth out the revenue curve, fill the gaps, provide a stable foundation. Here's the problem. Convention tourists aren't loyal to Vegas. They're loyal to their industry conference, to CES or SEMA or whatever trade show brought them here. If that conference moves to Orlando next year, they go to Orlando. If it moves to San Diego, they follow. They're not choosing the Venetian because they love the Venetian. They're there because that's where the group rate is. Zero loyalty, zero repeat visits, zero relationship with the property. And their gambling? Minimal, almost non-existent. They have meetings at 8 a.m. They're networking until midnight. They're preparing presentations in their rooms. They're exhausted from 12-hour days on the convention floor. They might hit the tables for an hour on the last night, might lose $100 as a Vegas experience before flying home. But the sustained, multi-hour gambling sessions that fund casino operations, the repeat visits that build into loyalty, the emotional connection that brings them back year after year, none of it. Convention tourists fill rooms. They don't fill coffers. The new tourists spend money. That's true. But they spend it wrong. The influencer spends on pools and clubs amenities that don't generate gaming revenue. The international tourist spends on shopping and shows money that never touches the casino floor. The convention attendee spends on the expense account with no loyalty, no gambling, and no reason to return. Gaming revenue is the engine that powers everything else. The cheap rooms, the free drinks, the affordable entertainment, all subsidized by gambling losses. When tourists stop gambling, the entire economic model breaks. The casino becomes an overpriced hotel. The resort becomes a shopping mall with rooms attached. The strip becomes a theme park that costs billions to operate and doesn't generate enough margin to survive. Vegas built a city for tourists who don't gamble, and now they're discovering what that actually costs. So the new tourists don't gamble enough to sustain the casinos. That would be survivable. That would be a problem you could solve. Adjust the model, find the balance, keep both customer bases happy. But here's the tragedy. Here's what makes this a catastrophe instead of just a mistake. The old tourists aren't coming back. The repeat gamblers Vegas abandoned, they didn't just disappear, they found somewhere else to go. The couple from Indianapolis, who used to fly to Vegas 3 times a year, they drive 45 minutes to the Tribal Casino now, the one that opened while Vegas was busy chasing influencers. Lower minimums. $5 blackjack on a Tuesday, $10 tables on the weekend, the kind of stakes that let them play for hours without risking the mortgage. Better comps. Free rooms that actually feel free, buffets that reward loyalty instead of punishing it, a player's card that means something, and no one making them feel unwelcome, no one telling them through pricing and design and attitude that they're not valuable enough to be here. The retired postal worker from Sacramento, he takes gambling cruises now, 3 nights to Mexico and back, $5 tables on the ship, all-you-can-eat buffet included, drinks flowing, entertainment every night. The experience Vegas used to offer at prices Vegas abandoned. The girlfriends from Dallas? They go to Louisiana, to Mississippi, to Oklahoma, regional casinos that copied the Vegas formula from 1,995. The formula Vegas threw away. Low minimums, generous comps, staff who remember your name, the feeling that you matter. And then there's the biggest competitor of all, the one that didn't exist when Vegas made its bet, the one that's captured millions of gamblers who might have gone to the strip. Their phones, online gambling, sports betting apps, casino games from the couch. Why fly to Vegas and pay $25 minimums when you can play for $5 without leaving your house? The old tourists found alternatives, lots of alternatives, and they're not coming back. Here's what the executives didn't understand, what the spreadsheets couldn't quantify, what no focus group could have revealed. Vegas had something money can't buy: generational loyalty. Families who'd been coming for decades, parents who brought their kids, kids who grew up and brought their own kids, traditions built over lifetimes, relationships that passed from generation to generation. We always stay at the Flamingo. My parents took me there in 1985. I took my kids there in 2005. It's our place. That kind of loyalty took 70 years to build. 70 years of experiences and memories and traditions layered on top of each other. It's been dismantled in 15. When you price out a family, you don't just lose one trip. You lose a lifetime of trips. You lose the trips their kids would have taken. You lose the trips their grandkids would have taken. The $25 minimums weren't just turning away one gambler for one weekend. They were severing a relationship that might have lasted 50 more years. The family that got priced out in 2015, their kids are adults now. Those kids have no memories of Vegas, no tradition, no emotional connection. They're not coming back because they were never really here. Vegas didn't just abandon tourists, it abandoned the backbone of this economy. For 70 years, they've been driven away, priced out, designed out, and they're not coming back. Vegas bet everything on replacing an army of loyal customers with a parade of one-time visitors. That bet is losing. Gaming revenue per visitor has been declining for years. Even as total visitors climb, even as the tourism board issues press releases about record numbers, even as the hotels fill and the pools pack and the nightclubs rage, the average visitor spends less time gambling, visits the casino floor less often, loses less money per trip. The non-gaming revenue the hotels and restaurants and nightclubs and shops doesn't generate enough margin to cover the gap. The numbers don't lie. The strategy isn't working. And then there's the physical evidence, the casinos that are disappearing. Tropicana gone, demolished for a baseball stadium, a property that served the repeat gambler for 67 years, erased. Mirage gone, the volcano dark forever. The property that invented modern Vegas closed because it couldn't compete for the new tourist. Circus circling the drain. The family Vegas, the affordable Vegas, the everyone is welcome Vegas rotting from within. These weren't random failures. They weren't victims of bad luck or bad timing. They were the properties that served the old tourist, the affordable options, the places where the repeat gambler felt at home. Vegas abandoned those tourists, and now it's abandoning the casinos that served them. The executives will tell you these closures are about land value, about redevelopment opportunities, about evolution and progress, and the changing market. They're lying to you and to themselves. These closures are about a strategy that failed, a bet that lost, a decision to abandon loyal customers for tourists who can't sustain the business. The properties closing are the evidence. The gaming revenue decline is the evidence. The empty tables and quiet slot floors are the evidence. Vegas bet on the wrong tourists, and now it's paying the price. Here's the tragedy. Vegas didn't have to choose. It could have kept the old tourist while adding the new one, could have maintained low-limit tables in one section while building nightclubs in another, could have preserved affordable options while adding luxury tiers. Both, not either or, both. Instead, they cannibalized, converted casino floor to club space everywhere, raised minimums across the board, eliminated the budget options entirely. They didn't expand the customer base, they swapped one customer for another. And the new customer doesn't pay the bills. And here's the part that should terrify every casino executive in Las Vegas. You can't undo this. You can't rebuild loyalty you spent 15 years destroying. You can't restore traditions you deliberately severed. You can't win back customers who've built new habits, found new places, made new memories. The couple from Indianapolis? The tribal casino is their tradition now. Their kids know that casino, not the Strip. The retired postal worker? The cruise line has his loyalty. They send him birthday cards. They remember his favorite table. The girlfriends from Dallas? They go to Louisiana every year now. It's their thing, their tradition, their Vegas replacement. Those relationships are gone, and they're not coming back. Vegas bet everything on the wrong tourists. Abandon the loyal gamblers who funded 70 years of growth. Chased influencers who use Vegas as a backdrop, courted international visitors who spend on shopping instead of slots, welcomed convention crowds who follow conferences, not casinos. The old tourists are gone. The new tourists don't gamble. The math doesn't work. And now the Strip is consolidating, closing, shrinking. Not because of outside forces, not because of competition or changing tastes or bad luck. Because the executives made a choice, a deliberate choice, and they chose wrong. Hit subscribe to watch the consequences unfold. I'm tracking the gaming revenue numbers, the visitor spending patterns, the closures that prove the strategy is failing. Drop a comment. Are you the old tourist Vegas abandoned? Have you found somewhere else to gamble? Or are you the new tourist they're chasing, and do you ever actually hit the casino floor? Because the executives still think they made the right call, the consultants still defend the pivot, the PowerPoints still show growth in visitor counts, while gaming revenue quietly declines. But the casinos are closing. The gaming floors are shrinking. The tourists who actually funded this city are gambling somewhere else. Vegas bet on the wrong customers, and the house always pays when it loses. I'll see you in the next one.